Well, greetings, people of the internet. Unky Joe here, Unky Joe's Playhouse. This is not a video about Windows Server 2022. Well, how was that for a silly intro? There you go. Yeah, it's not a video about Server 2022. It's actually a video about Server 2019 and one of my Dell R710s. About, I don't know if it's been a year and a half or 2 years ago, somebody, and whose name I forget, and forgive me, I'll go back and look it up, but that's not important. What's important right now, somebody sent me this server, donated it to me. And it's a powerful server. It's got one of the most powerful Xeon processors in there. I think it came with 40 or 60 gig of RAM. The problem with this server is that it has 2.5-inch SATA backplane on it. It doesn't have 3.5. And as you know, about the largest 2.5-inch SATA SAS hard drive you can get is about 2.5 terabytes. So the 3.5-inch units are much more valuable to me than the 2.5-inch units. But another subscriber donated a bunch of SAS hard drives to me, a combination of 600 gig hard drives and 130 gig or 140 gig hard drives, sorry. And I hated seeing them going to waste. And the other thing I've never done with that server is to change the HBA controller in it. So the SAS serial ATA controller that is in there is actually a RAID controller. It has I have no use for hardware RAID, haven't for years. The other problem is there's no way to mount a 2.5-inch SSD drive in there as a boot drive, because you know me, I'm not going to run VMware, I'm not going to run anything on it but Windows. I want to run Windows on my Dell servers. Windows just works great on these Dell servers. It's made for it. And so as a consequence, I needed a couple of things, and they were of low priority. One of those is to change out the HBA adapter, which I've now done. And the other was to put an SSD drive in there. But alas, where to put it? Well, I lucked out there, because in this Dell R710, it had one of these in it. This is a DVD CD rewritable drive. It was already in there, fortunately for me. And that also means that when that's in there, it means they put in the cable, the serial ATA cable that enables you to get power and SATA through a cable off the motherboard on that Dell R710, because that cable alone is about $20-25 online. So all it was a matter of was me pulling out this DVD rewritable, which I'm never going to use, and instead putting one of these in there. And that's just a tray adapter, and it takes it from the you see it's the same size as the CD-ROM drive, right? You got to make sure to get the same thickness. I think these are 9.5 mil thick. And you basically you slide your SSD drive in here, and there's a couple of screws that go into the side to hold it in, and you pop that in and plug your cable on the back, and bing, bang, boom, you've got a serial ATA, or you've got an SSD drive. You could also use a 2.5-inch spinning hard drive if you wanted to, but why not? Let's use SSD, right? So that's what I did, and it didn't work. And it didn't work because I went against my better judgment, and I bought this. It's a second HDD caddy, and they're all made in China. It's I think they call it a Hi-Fine Universal 9.5 is the name of it. And unfortunately it didn't work. It's a piece of junk. I took the drive, I couldn't get it to recognize the drive, as you'll see in the video coming up. It would say there was no serial ATA drive connected. Now this, just so you know where this server is, it's in the bottom of my rack. And I don't have the little arms on the back of my servers that allow the cables to come with it. So I have to squeeze my fat bohunkus in behind the rack, reach down to the bottom server, unplug everything, and hope to God I don't hit something with an elbow. and then I have to pull that bottom server all the way out and to open it up to get this back out of there. And so I did everything in my power to avoid having to do that. But eventually I ended up having to pull the drive out of this little drive tray adapter and hook it up directly. Took it out of this little chingamadero and connected it up directly to my PC to make sure that I didn't have a bad SSD drive. So then the next thing, only other thing it could have been besides this was the cable. And as far as I knew, the DVD drive was working, so I eliminated that. So I went on Amazon, and I bought these before, not this brand. So I went back to last year to the other brand I bought, and thankfully it was still available because I noticed on this drive tray, I don't know if you can see it, and there's a little switch in the back. You see a little chingamadero switch? I've tried switches. Somebody said this is a known issue with these. They either work or they don't. It's feast or famine. And someone said flip the switch, and so I flipped the switch. It still didn't work. So I went back on Amazon, ordered the one I had used before in my other Dell R710, got that in within a day or two, and put it in, and I was able to then get the BIOS to see the drive. So yay for that, right? Excuse the noise, that's the Blu-ray drive. I'm ripping a Blu-ray here behind me. One of the other things I wanted to do was be able to use the 2.5-inch drives in here, but I wanted to use them as pass-through devices through an HBA and not have a RAID controller in there. So I hooked up with my guy at Art of Server out there. I asked him, hey, this is the Dell I have. Which controller do you have that's flashed into IT mode that I could have for a good price? And he hooked me up with the correct HBA that had been flashed, and I got it within 2 or 3 days. Thank you, Art of Server. I have a letter I'm very fond of that Art of Server wrote me about a year back now, and he sent me a bunch of toys to play with. I got a bromance going on with him. I love his videos. Wish he had time to do more of it. But anyway, I digress. He hooked me up with the correct HBA. Always go with the professionals when you're dealing with this stuff, right? If people are more knowledgeable than you, so be it, and send them your business. And he sent me that controller out. It was here in 2 or 3 days. And then it languished here in my office for eons before I got the desire, because I have, frankly, folks, been busier than a one-legged man in a butt-kicking contest. And I got tied up with client work and everything else. So, but long story short, too late. This allows me to then either use those drives under Windows Server 2019 as individual drives without having to go through the controller and set up a virtual device. They also allow me to use them if I were to install TrueNAS or something like that on there. Without the controller getting in the way, just passing through the drive information. So that's installed in there. The SSD is installed in there. And so now what I'm going to do is I'm going to show you going through and getting Windows Server 2019 set up on here. And then after I do that, we'll come back and we'll explain why I wanted to put Server 2019 on here, what my overall plan is moving forward. There it is. There's the SAS controller. Initializing. Well, looks like it's trying to spin up the drives. Updating adapter list. I hope that's a good thing. And then we see that we have 8 devices. Cool. And that was the deal, boys and girls. We had a bad SSD adapter, CD-ROM adapter tray, $8, $7 tray, and now it is seeing the serial ATA drive in there if we boot. Okay, now I pulled all the other hard drives out of it, all the SAS drives out. I didn't want there to be any, issues, so it should come up and show there's no hard drives in there. Let's go to the virtual CD, and now you can see it's incrementing the read bytes. Alright, and it is loading. Alright, so let's see if we have some better success this time on installing. And we're going to do our standard evaluation desktop experience. Click on next. or an SSD drive, custom. And there it is. Yay. Yay, yay, yay. I'm going to delete that. That's fine. Do new. Apply. Oh, sure. Next. And let it install. So once it's installed, we'll come back and get it configured for Unky Joe's Playhouse for the domain. And then we'll slide the drives in and we'll see if they're all working. All right, so all the updates are done. Everything's done. So now what I want to do, the plan for this unit moving forward, now that I've got it on Windows Server 2019, is I'm going to temporarily store my lab virtual machines onto this machine. And that's because I'm going to be updating those two machines, the Dell R720 and the Dell R620, to Windows Server 2022. But Drivebender won't work with that. Drivebender only works right now with Windows Server 2019. And I want these drives on this machine to be available through a Drivebender drive pool to store the virtual machines temporarily. So that's what we're going to do now, is get that set up. So I've got the this is the unit I've got. I had about 20 hard drives, SAS drives, donated to me about 3 to 4 months ago, and so I put them to good use in all of these servers that take the 2.5-inch drive. So it's been a slow process, but this unit now has 8 SAS drives. Now they're only 600 gig, I believe. So let's go into disk management here. I believe they're only 600 gig hard drives, so it's going to take a minute to populate. Yeah, so you can see there's, let's see here. No, I may be wrong. They may only be 136 gigabyte hard drives. Yeah, they are. That's all right. Well, we can put them to good use. I must have put I think the 600 gig drives are in the R720 and the 620. So we'll just move forward with this. I'm going to go ahead and bring all of these online. And then I'm going to delete any partitions on there. Oh, goodness gracious. Yeah, we're going to have to go into the command line, aren't we? Or the PowerShell as admin. So let's do that. Let's go into disk part. Let's list all our disks, and we're just going to wipe them from here. Remember, disk 8 is the one we don't want to do, so I'll select disk 0, and now I'm going to clean it. And you should see behind me that it just goes to unallocated and clean. So I'll just arrow up and select disk 1 this time, and we'll clean that. And you can see behind me on the screen it cleaned the disk. And so on and so forth. We just keep going on down until we get all of the disks cleaned. And remembering, we want to stop with drive 8. Yeah, we don't want to go any further than 7. Virtual disk servers here. So disk 3, oh, interesting. I wonder why it's not letting me do that, because the disk is offline. So let's bring it online. Very interesting. Access is denied. It won't let me bring that on. Okay, so let's select disk 4 then. And let's clean that one. And we'll have to come back to these others, so we want to select disk 5 and clean that. And we want to select disk 6 and clean that. And then we want to select disk 7 and we want to clean that. Okay, so now let's go look. Let's exit disk manager and bring it back up. Okay, so all these disks are uninitialized. So I'm going to go ahead and set them up for a master boot record. And the only one I couldn't do is this one. Well, we'll have to come back and fix this error later. I know what it is. I had this disk in a storage array, a Windows storage spaces array, and somehow it's had an attribute flagged on the drive that I cannot seem to unflag. So we're going to continue forward, but we're just not going to use that drive in the Drivebender drive array. So I'm just bringing the rest of these drives or disks online, and then I'm doing putting a simple volume on them without a drive letter. These, see, give it to Joe and he can break it. Whatever combination of, you know, stuff I put this machine through, testing it, at some point has foobarred one of the drives. It's the only thing I can think of. So I've got all my volumes set up now, so now I should be able to come back into Drivebender, which I already have running, and I should be able to add these to my pool. The drive appears to be a system reserve drive, it says. Drivebender 0 is a system reserve drive? No, it isn't. We're going to try it anyway. And we're going to let Drivebender do all the drive mapping, volume renaming, and manage the drive letters. Okay, so I'm just going to keep adding these disks. Alright, so there's our new Drivebender drive array. Should be drive letter P now. Yeah, and we've got almost a terabyte of storage with all those drives in there. And I need to go ahead and activate my license within 7 days, or I'll lose the ability to connect to those drives. Alright, so the next thing I want to do is I want to get Hyper-V prepared. I want to make sure that I go to Hyper-V settings here and I change this to drive letter P. I want all my Hyper-V stuff, the machine information and the hard disk, the virtual hard disk, to be put on the P drive. So we'll go and change that here. Now I'm hoping that it's just a simple matter of, and I can do 2 live migrations. I'm not going to be doing my live migrations at all. Just make sure I've got it set to use Kerberos. Yes, I do. And tell that okay. Now let's make sure that we have a switch in here. Yeah. And this is I don't have 10 gigs, so we'll call this gigabit 1-1-vert for the switch name, just for my reference. Okay, now I need to power up the R720 Dell and go over and turn on, and then make sure that the virtual machines are ready to migrate over. Alright, so here we are on the Dell R720 server, and what I want to do is try to move all of these virtual machines over to the R710 high-powered, because I'm going to upgrade this one to Server 2022, and I want to do a clean install on this unit. I wonder how I've got the drives configured on here. Probably in a drive pool, if I know me. Yeah, there's a drive pool. Let's right click on this and see if we can move this over to the other server, because all of this will be for naught. So I'm going to move the virtual machine, and optionally it's storage to another computer running Hyper-V. Click on next. I'm going to type in Dell 710-HP because I'm looking for the high-powered Dell. Click on next. Okay, it connected, so it's asking me, do I want to move the virtual machine's data to a single location? And that is what I want to do. And on that machine, I'm going to click on Browse, go to the drive pool, Hyper-V and select the folder. And this machine is 21.88 gigs, so I'm going to click on Next. It's going to copy it over there, click on Finish. And these are basically lab units that I'm moving over there. I could just recreate them from scratch, but I put a lot of work into these lab units, and I want to keep them as we move forward with our Windows Lab series. So now let's bring up Task Manager over here. And we should see quite a bit of activity going across our Ethernet. And this unit does have the NVIDIA Quadro P400 in here as well. Alright, so we'll let this run. So we can see as I transfer another virtual machine over to this Dell with Drivebender, you can see Drivebender is writing out the virtual machine. And let's go see. You can see the data coming across on the Ethernet line. And there's the first machine that we moved. So what I'm going to do is go ahead and move all of the other virtual machines over to this machine. Alright, so all the virtual machines are now moved off of the Dell R720, and they are moved over to the Dell 710 HP, where I'm at right now. So I want to make sure they work, especially this one because it had some snapshots or checkpoints. So I'm going to go ahead and right click and connect to this. And then I'm going to power the unit on. This is our Windows Lab domain controller 01. So it's very important we have this machine available to us to continue on with the Windows Lab series of videos. We're going to make another domain controller. And that's why I'm going through all of this process now to get the operating systems moved around onto the individual servers. Now, normally I would store the virtual machine hard drive on an iSCSI share on my Synology FS1018. But because these machines are in flux right now and they're only lab units, I kind of want to make use of the local storage as well and just see how it does speed-wise compared to running it off of an iSCSI share off of SSD storage on that FS1018. So, but if we look at Drivebender, it looks like it is, I mean, it is booting off the virtual hard drive. So, I don't know if Drivebender, oh no, it's doing 112. You see the speeds coming up and down in the I/O requests per second. So it's not being as big a slouch as I thought it was. And like I say, we'll see if this machine powers up and if I can log into it and use it as normally. And then we'll consider this machine is ready to start serving the needs of the lab while we go and upgrade the R720 to Server 2022. And I should say, while we clean and install. Well, there we go. There's the... here is the domain controller. Let's bring up Windows Server Manager here. Make sure everything came up, and it's not slow at all. It's very zippy. Okay, it seems homelab.local. It sees the Windows Defender firewall. Remote desktop is enabled. Let's see. Do we have our... Yeah, we've got Edge out here. So let's see if we can go get out to the internet. And of course, there's some updates because this machine has been sitting idle for a number of weeks. All right, go through the little... Yeah, tell me later. Thank you. Confirm, and no, I'm not going to sign in. Interesting. Here we go. Appearance. Appearance. I want dark and stormy. And I want to set the home button. And I want to always show my favorites. I'm going to close that. Go home. Let's go out to eBay. And there we go. So everything appears to be working. Now this machine is on the 20 subnet. It's in a VLAN as well. So let's just verify that real quick. Just view my network properties. Yeah, 20.1 is my IPv4 address. So we're good to go.
it appears to be working.
Now, initially my thought process was to install Windows Server 2022 on here. But as you know, I've run it. I did some experiments with Windows Server 2022. And it's just not quite ready for prime time yet. I put it on my IBM X3650 Model 3 and it ran fine, but I could not use Drivebender on there. And I really want to use Drivebender on this particular server because I just like the way Drivebender handles the drives. The problem is that, like I said, I couldn't use it under Server 2022. So I put Server 2019 on here, as you just saw. And as you also saw, that I moved my virtual machines off of my Dell R710, which is also running Server 2019. That is my lab units when I do my lab videos on. I moved that over to this server so that I could then install Windows Server 2022 on the Dell R720, and I'll have a video coming up on that as well. So what I've decided to do, because I have two of these Dell R710s, and I'm going to keep them on Windows Server 2019 because I can use Drivebender on them. It just gives me a little more flexibility. And then for the Dell R720, I'll be able to use that. I want to try out the new Hyper-V on that, the version 10 Hyper-V, etc. So it gives me the best of both worlds, and I can, as you saw, I can easily move machines around with Hyper-V. It's very trivial. You don't need any of that fancy schmancy VMware stuff to do that with Hyper-V. And I'm doing all this on a trial operating system, don't forget. And the whole idea behind getting all these servers up on Windows is because I'm going to be doing a lot of the, like I said, the Windows Lab series of videos. And it just allows me a lot of flexibility. And for what I do, Microsoft just works for me and my clients. So I'm not opposed to VMware. What I'm opposed to is the cost of VMware. And even though there are other hypervisors out there that work extremely well, Proxmox, XCP, which is basically Citrix, or Citrix, which is basically XCP, they all work fine. But I'm a Windows guy, I love my GUI. And I can live with the limitations of Hyper-V, and there are very few. The biggest limitation of Hyper-V has been passed through on the video, but it looks now like that has been resolved as well. So yeah, maybe they'll resolve it on Windows Server. I'm not going to hold my breath, and I really don't care because I don't have a need for it. What I did have a need for is a stable machine to run Hyper-V on and to move machines around, and that's what I've got now with this setup. Well, so there you go, folks. We got it up and running, and we can now move forward with our lab series of videos and additional lab series of videos. I've done a few. I will do a video covering the install of Windows Server 2022 on both the Dell R720 I have, and don't forget I have a Dell R620 as well, which is basically a slimmer version of the R720. And unfortunately, they both have 2.5-inch drive bays in them, so it kind of limits what I can do with them. But they're fun to have. I've got a video card in the R720, and I'm looking into putting one into the R620 just to give me a little more leverage, but and a little more fun, a little more things to play with. A few more things to play with on that server. Gives you a few more options. So there you go. We hope you found the video entertaining and informative. As always, please give us a thumbs up down below if you liked it. Subscribe if you're not already a subscriber, and hit that notification bell to be notified of new videos when they come out. Donate if you're so inclined. We take PayPal, Patreon, and the YouTube join function. Thanks for coming to see us, and please don't forget, see all of you on the other side.